More roster decisions have been made by the Chicago White Sox with the official announcements coming on Wednesday. Mike Clevenger's final tune-up before the regular season was anything but smooth, and Hanser Alberto had a scare when he got hit in the hand during Monday's game against the Cubs. Sox have one more spring training game to go before all the focus shifts to Houston.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong diehard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTV. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, welcome back to Locked On White Sox, and I really mean that. I've been hearing from so many fans over the last week or so that have come back to White Sox podcasts with the season coming up. So welcome back. Thank you for continuing to pass this podcast along to other White Sox fans in your life. Any questions and comments, you can get those in at lockedonsox@gmail.com. Our Chicago White Sox have a spring training record 12-13 with a few ties. Had another one of those on Monday against the Cubs. Believe it or not, there is one game left. I can't believe it. I feel like, the off season, creating White Sox content and, the GM meetings and, what were the Sox going to do in terms of signing any players, and where were these trades going to come from, and then leading up to spring training, and now getting through all of spring training and thinking about these final roster moves as the Sox start to break camp and head to Houston. I can't believe we're here. I got this last game on Tuesday against the Cubs. Late on Sunday evening, Daryl Van Scoven of the Chicago Sun-Times provided some clarity on what this White Sox roster could look like. Infielder, outfielder Romy Gonzalez, and right-hander Gregory Santos making the opening day roster per source. Sox bench looks like Sebi Zavala, Hanser Alberto, Gavin Sheets, and Romy Gonzalez. Of course, Lurie Garcia is out. Rule 5 draft pick Nick Avila and journeyman Bryan Shaw are out as well. And it sure looks like Oscar Colas is in at right field. Again, nothing official right now. There's some comments from Sox manager Pedro Grifol regarding this roster process. We've just got to pick the guys we think are going to mesh together and give us the most versatility and coverage in things we think are important, Grifol said. But try to cover everything is almost impossible. Word about that versatility thing. I think there's a lot of folks, and I get it. Where's Jake Burger at? Jake Burger should be on this roster. And I do think it comes down to versatility. I don't trust Jake Burger with the glove. I know he's been working at first base, not just third base. So, yeah, he can mash. His bat is ready for MLB, and he can mash lefties. I don't know if that's enough to keep him on the lineup. We'll see. He deserves a shot somewhere, though, and I don't – there's just a log jam. It's tough for Jake Burger with this organization. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but obviously an easy guy to root for. He's got pop in that bat. He showed it off this spring. But that versatility word, obviously that Grifol talks about, That's where I think about in terms of Jake Berger. Grifol said several questions come up when making those tough decisions. You try to go through every single scenario, and you're always going to be missing on one or two. He said, "Can this guy play out there? What if this happens? Can we cover this? If that happens, can we cover this? What if they bring in a lefty? What if they bring in a righty? What if we need a base runner? What if we had already pinch hit and we have an injury?" We're going to do our very best to be well suited to cover many different scenarios with the understanding that something may come up that we just either can't cover it or we can't cover it the way we want to cover it because we tried to attack another area we felt was more important. Over time, that's the one thing I've learned. But the reason for the difficult decisions are because there are a lot of guys that do a lot of really good things. And I think plain and simple, it's just what kind of lineup does Pedro Grifol and his coaching staff want to put out there? What type of brand of baseball is he most comfortable trying to play and trying to achieve? Now, the core guys, there was nothing he was going to do with some of those core guys. And there's a good deal of them. Obviously, no more Jose Abreu, but Andrew Vaughn now slides into, I think, that core group. Those guys that were here, he really, it's not like he's going to cut those guys or try to ask for a trade or anything. So it's those fringe guys, those utility guys, those reserves. And, it's been made a lot of conversations about over the last, especially couple weeks. Do you go with Billy Hamilton with the new rules and, bigger bases, and he could be so valuable and he brings a lot to the clubhouse and he can be a defensive replacement. I was a little surprised about Billy Hamilton. I really was. Romy Gonzalez had a rough start to the spring, and he was hyped up all off season before Elvis Andrus. Remember, he was going to be the starting second baseman. And all of those hype videos and how early he got into Glendale and all the work he's been putting in. And Pedro Grifol said a lot of positive things about him. And this is where I wonder, just conspiracy theory, I guess, if Pedro Grifol already knew a long time ago, like, look, I want Hanser Alberto and I want Romy Gonzalez. And unless something drastic happens, we're going with those guys. And maybe Leury Garcia just wasn't a Pedro Grifol guy. He's not somebody that, I just basically had to take on when I took this job, and I didn't want that. Now, no real clear word on what's going to happen to Leury Garcia, but obviously not on the opening day roster. In terms of the bullpen, it sounds like the White Sox will carry 13 pitchers, Kendall Graveman, Joe Kelly, Lopez, Jose Ruiz, Jimmy Lambert, and lefties Aaron Bummer and Jake Diekman, assuming Bummer is good to go after his late start in camp, should make up the top 7. So who's that 8th spot? Is that maybe Gregory Santos? A lot of people were thinking maybe it's going to be Nick Avila, but Santos, again, not a huge sample size in the spring, lively arm. I think he touched 100 miles per hour a few times. A young guy. Pedro Grifol, great things to say about him. Be nice to have a power arm in that bullpen, especially as we wait on Garrett Crochet and obviously waiting on Liam Hendricks. Speaking of Hendricks, the big question is how Grifol manages it without Hendricks, who is undergoing treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He said he has no set closer, although Graveman has the most experience of the group closing games, and Lopez the best stuff. Sox manager Pedro Grifol recently said the plan in those situations is going to be leveraging it out, not going to have a designated closer without Hendricks, of course. We're going to leverage the bullpen, and the first day we'll have everybody available. Second day, we probably won't. Once we get past the first day, unless we throw a complete game, we won't have one or two of those guys available. So that is going to change on a daily basis. In addition to Graveman, the Sox could also turn to Joe Kelly, Aaron Bummer, or Ronaldo Lopez. Kelly, has a 2.57 ERA and 6 strikeouts in 7 innings this spring, not including Monday, which he did pitch against the Cubs. He looked good. He's really impressive to me, Grifol said. He's not a big guy, 6'1", 180 pounds. He's got some kind of power. He's an unbelievable athlete. He's got a lot of strength through the body. He's one of these guys you look at, 98, 100 mile per hour with power stuff. He slows the game down. He's a veteran pitcher. He knows what he's doing. I was personally not a fan of Joe Kelly last year. Talking about slowing the game down, that man has had to make some adjustments when it's come to the pitch clock, as he was a human rain delay. Far too inconsistent last season, seemed to be hurt too many times to be reliable. And, I like what I've seen so far in the spring. I really have. And Bummer, God, he has not pitched much at all. He pitched on Monday against the Cubs. And if healthy, he provides an angle, something different with his delivery. I was watching him closely on Monday on the Marquee Network, unfortunately, but the way Bummer delivers, when he releases that lefty motion, it's almost like he's releasing behind a left-handed batter, a little bit like Chris Sale, and he's got a funky motion. I think it's tough to pick up when that slider and off-speed stuff is right. He's almost unhittable. We've seen those stretches from Aaron Bummer. So hopefully he is healthy, and he's a guy that we rely on. No Tanner Banks. I know a lot of folks confused on Tanner Banks. He was big for the White Sox in 2022, and I thought he pitched fairly well in Cactus League play. So we'll see what happens in the future with Tanner Banks. I think he's going to be of some value this season. It was good to see Andrew Vaughn back in action and Romy Gonzalez flexing the power again. But Clevenger got roughed up, and Hanser Alberto got hit. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So let's get to that Monday game. Sox tied the Cubs 6-6. Mike Clevenger on the hill for his final tune-up before the regular season, and it was rough from the get-go. First inning, he only went a third of an inning, gave up 4 hits, 4 runs. They were all earned, 0 strikeouts, and 1 walk. He looked just out of sorts, did not look comfortable at all, and the Cubs jumped all over him. Ramsey came in to clean things up, and then Clevenger came back and pitched in the second inning, really just to get some innings and to get his pitch count up. Gave up a 2-out solo home run to Dansby Swanson in the second. Stayed in through the game through the 5th and a part of the 6th before he was relieved. Final Mike Clevenger line from Monday: 4 into 3rd innings, 7 hits, 6 runs, 6 earned runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, 1 home run. His spring ERA 6.89. While not pleased with the location of his pitching, Clevenger was pleased with his stuff and pitch sequencing as the outing progressed and proclaimed himself fit for the season to begin. Yeah, I'm ready, he said. I need to get mechanical stuff out of my head. In the first inning, I was still thinking about the stuff and we were working on in the bullpen. Now, again, Mike Clevenger is one of those pitchers that the commissioner's office said maybe a month or so ago, look, these motions, this windup, that's not allowed anymore. The herky-jerky stop and start, confusion stuff, can't do that. So Mike Clevenger's had to really work on a whole new motion. And the start previous to the one on Monday, he really looked out of sorts, very herky-jerky. And I'm wondering if he's just thinking about that, to his quote, if he's thinking about that way too much on this new repeatable motion that he's trying to work on. So it was rough, but if he says he's ready, I guess he's ready. Ramsey, Graveman, Bummer. Bummer looked good. He really did. Kelly looked good as well. And Navarro were all of your Sox pitchers. Sox offense, 6 runs. 5 of the runs were scored in the 9th inning. 10 hits, 2 extra base hits, a 3-run home run by Romy Gonzalez. Man, he has come on as of late. These last 10 days or so, Sox were 3 for 11 with runners in scoring position. Hanser Alberto, scary moment. He was hit by a pitch in his fingers in the 5th inning, left the game immediately. According to a few sources, White Sox say Hanser Alberto, who was hit by a pitch on the right hand, he is going to be fine. So that is very good news. Again, he has had such a great spring. He has earned that spot on the White Sox roster. So I doubt he'll play on Tuesday, but you never know. Andrew Vaughn returned, though. He played first base. He went 1 for 3 with a base hit. Sounds like his back is feeling much better. After the game, the White Sox reassigned right-hand pitcher Kenan Middleton, catcher Sebastian Rivero, infielders Eric Gonzalez, which Eric Gonzalez I thought had a pretty good spring too, and Zach Remillard. Outfielders Billy Hamilton, Adam Haseley, and Jake Marisnick reassigned to minor league camp. No specific word on Lurie Garcia. With the moves, the White Sox have 33 left in camp, 18 pitchers, 2 catchers, 9 infielders, and 4 outfielders. According to a Sun-Times article by Daryl Van Scoven, barring injuries, the opening day roster is shaping up as follows. Starting pitchers, Dylan Cease, Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, Mike Clevenger, and Michael Kopech in that order. Relief pitchers, Kendall Graveman, Joe Kelly, Jose Ruiz, Jake Diekman, Aaron Bummer, Gregory Santos, Jimmy Lambert, and Ronaldo Lopez. Catchers, Yasmani Grandal and Sebi Zavala. Infielders, Tim Anderson, Elvis Andrus, Andrew Vaughn, Yoan Moncada, Gavin Sheets, Hanser Alberto, Romy Gonzalez. Outfielders, Andrew Benintendi, Luis Robert, Oscar Colas, and Eloy Jimenez. White Sox will apparently announce the roster officially on Wednesday. Hopefully there are many differences between last season and this upcoming season, but playing with a sense of urgency during the early months could be one of the deciding factors. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. The Built Bar Madness Bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now it's your time to make it count. Go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorites. I'm going to be voting for Double Chocolate Puff. So go out and support your favorite Built Bar or Puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription of Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. If you have not already, you have got to try Built. Built, the best protein bar ever. They're so amazing, you won't think they're good for you. They are high in protein, low in sugar, and covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. Run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're out there. You can vote every day in March, so hop in and support your pick. Some insight into Pedro Grifol's approach and some predictions from Scott Merkin. beat writer for the White Sox for MLB.com, saw this article on WhiteSox.com. Big picture predictions aren't near his preparation, even when talk arises of a fast start. A fast start to the season would be nice. Energy is a must, but I'm here now, man, Grifol said. I'm in the moment. What do you mean by season? 10 games, 15 games, 20 games? I'm here now. Very meta, very mindful of Pedro Grifol, but I think playing with a sense of urgency from the get-go is absolutely important. Grifol has said, look, you're not going to win the World Series in April and May, but you can lose it. And last year, the White Sox were 8-12 in April, 15-12 in May, and 12-15 in June. So through June, the Sox were 35-39 and were 6 games back in the division. They finally were able to cut the deficit to 1 game on August 16th, but that was the closest they could get. So coming out hungry, coming out fast, punching some teams right in the mouth, being prepared, taking advantage. That's what I would like to see. I get it. People will always say to me, and maybe it's happened to you, look, it's just April. This is a long season. You better relax. Yeah, I get that. But some of those games that you let go in April and May, they add up. And then come, September, you're like, wow, man, we're back 3 games. Well, some of those games early on, cold weather, those are tough games. Those are scrappy games. You can play with some urgency and grab some of those, stack the win, so to speak. It's going to be advantageous, especially for those dog days of summer. Now, according to Merkin, he says, what needs to go right? And he picked good health. Everybody's talking about good health locally, nationally. If the White Sox are going to have a chance in the AL Central, it's got to be health because of what we've seen the last several years. I would say urgency, fundamentals, being prepared, out managing and outplaying your opposition. I think that is something that affected the White Sox so many times, especially when we played Cleveland. We just got outmanaged. We got outplayed. Looking at our lineup and when we had most of our guys healthy compared to Cleveland's lineup, we should have been able to beat them. I would even take our pitchers too, but we just got outplayed. Guys were out of position and opposition took advantage of that kind of stuff. So fundamentals, being prepared, not guessing. Jose Castro talked about it this offseason from the hitting standpoint. Mike Tosar, knowing what you're going to expect from your opposition, whoever's on that mound, whatever arm you see. So it's not as much of a guessing game. There will be some guessing, I'm sure, but to be prepared more times than not. Set yourself up for success. In terms of health, look, so far, so good. I'm a little worried about Andrew Vaughn's back. He says it's fine. He played Monday. I just hope it isn't something that comes barking and is a problem in some of these colder months for Vaughn. Moncada, something happened with his back recently. He said it's okay. It's no big deal. I don't, the Sox aren't being too specific. You didn't see him in action on Monday. Probably aren't going to see him in action on Tuesday. He'll have a rest day on Wednesday. So we'll see. That's a bit of a problem. But other than that, everything looks so far so good health-wise. Merkin said the great unknown will be who the closer is. And just to, Grifol's previous comments that I talked about earlier in the episode in terms of closer, which it sounds like it's going to be by committee. I hope it's somebody like Ronaldo Lopez if they choose. I love his stuff. It sounds like he wants it, even though he has no real track record. But that takes a very specific mindset to close a game. To come in there. You watch that last Comiskey, especially part 3, talking about Bobby Thigpen and some of the other bullpen arms. That is a different mindset, to come in and want that situation. And if you're going with committee, I think that's a difficult game to play, rotating guys. to get yourself amped up of one day I'm going to be coming in for relief in the 6th or 7th. And then, tomorrow I might be in a tense situation trying to close the game. We'll see how it goes, but I would love if they chose somebody and just said, you know what, you're our guy until Hendricks comes back. So we'll see. Merkin said team MVP will be Anderson. Tough one to argue with, but if healthy, of course, Luis Robert. I think he can be. I'm obviously on both sides, defensively and offensively. Haven't heard too much of, he hasn't made a lot of noise in Glendale. He had a little bit of success in the World Baseball Classic, talked about its impact and how it got him ready now for the season to playing in some meaningful, intense games for his country. So I want to see Robert play 140. Can we get him at 150 games and see what happens? All the promise for Luis Robert. I think he can be the team MVP. Team Cy Young, Merkin says Dylan Cease, a fairly obvious choice, of course, but heavy is the head that wears the crown. He is going to have a bullseye on his back, folks. You know it. Again, he didn't win the Cy Young, but he came awfully close. He had one heck of a year. And everybody, every team, every lineup is going to be circling Dylan Cease. I want the best. I'm going after this guy. It's a Dylan Cease day, great, and they are going to be amped up for something like that. I think you're going to see hitters attack Dylan Cease early. And in at bat, I don't think they're going to want to get 2 strikes on a Dylan Cease where he's got some nasty secondary stuff. He can really cut you up with what he throws. So we'll see again. Are they going to be patient? Dylan Cease can be kind of erratic at times. He's had a problem with the walks. I don't know if you want to play that game. If you get something early in an at bat, you might jump all over that. So maybe strikeouts are a little down for Dylan Cease, but that means, not as many pitches are on that arm. So he might be able to go deeper in games, something to look for. Bold prediction. Merkin had Anderson wins the AL most valuable player. That is a bold prediction. I went team. You want bold, you want crazy. White Sox make it to the ALCS. They make it to the ALCS. I think that is bold. Maybe not locally, but nationally. That's a huge, bold statement. Merkin said, in terms of Anderson, after an injury-plagued 2022, a microcosm of a season which was a disappointment for the entire organization, Anderson is driven, challenged, and having fun with baseball. His full value will be felt once again for the White Sox and throughout MLB in 2023. I asked my co-host, Pat Hester, on my weekly White Sox podcast, Good Guys Talk Back, who is the guy that the White Sox just can't afford to lose at all for any long stretch. And, he went with Dylan Cease. He went with a pitcher, what I think is smart. He's your ace. You cannot be without your ace. But I think Anderson is a guy that, we saw what happened last season when he was out. The Sox seemed to be turning a corner a little bit. He was gone. He got hit on the finger. He had surgery. He was done for, and the Sox just couldn't recover. So many players have talked about how he is the guy. He starts everything out, offensively. We need him out on defense, and he is the clubhouse guy. He brings everything together. So expecting a big year from Tim Anderson. I don't know about AL most valuable player, but I think he's going to have a very good year. If he wins AL most valuable player, boy, his stock has definitely gotten out of the reach of Jerry Reinsdorf's wallet. Something to follow for sure. Folks, thank you so very much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. We're on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen. Now, for your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Win Your League by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the very best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, on the next episode, going to continue to bring you the latest happenings one last time from Glendale, Arizona, as the White Sox inch closer to that meeting with the Houston Astros on opening day. Really appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.